Hello, lovely people. Welcome to Bar Passions YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to be learning how to make an off-shoulder Igbo blouse. And we're going to be using an Indian George fabric to achieve this project. Here, we're going to be learning how to maintain the beautiful pattern that comes with our Indian George without cutting it to achieve that perfect and beautiful look. So I hope this is something you are interested in learning. Kindly stay tuned while we get right into the tutorial. Please, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, kindly hit on the subscribe button to subscribe. So let's get started. So these are the materials we'll be using for this project. And this is the first wrapper, which is made of net fabric. And you can see that it is fully beaded. So this is a wrapper that will be on top. And then I have the main George wrapper that will be underneath the first one. And then here we have the fabric for the blouse. It's also made of net, and this is 1.5 yard. So it's always enough to give you your blouse. And this is the pattern I was talking about. So in this video, we'll be learning how to maintain this pattern so that you don't cut it or ruin it. So with that being said, the next is our satin, which will serve as a lining for this net fabric. And then next is our lining fabric. You need your lining. So with this is our lining fabric we'll be using to line the blouse. I have 1 yard of this, and then also my satin, I also have 1 yard of this. And then here we have our raw silk fabric. This raw silk will be used for the sleeves. So let's get right into the drafting part. I will be drafting directly on my lining, and here I've gone ahead to fold my lining into two, and I use the bust pan measurement to determine the amount of fabric to fold. The bust pan, which is nipple to nipple, is 8 inches. 8 divided by 2, that's 4. So I went ahead to fold 4 inches plus half. So that's 8 plus 1. And then when I folded it into 2, so I have 4.5. So next I'm going to draw my starting line. So here is my starting line. Remember, we're making an off-shoulder blouse. All my measurements will be starting from -4. So I'm going to be subtracting -4 from the length, that's from the vertical length. So I'm placing my tape from the starting line, and I am placing it starting from -4. I hope we understand. So from this -4 now, I'll go ahead and mark the bust point line. So here now we have our bust point line, and then I'll go ahead to mark the underbust line, the waistline also, and then the full length of the blouse. So I won't be adding hemming allowance to this fabric, to my lining. This is because I'm drafting directly on my lining. I'll be adding my hemming allowance to the main fabric. So I'm going ahead to straighten my lines. So now I have the bust line, the underbust line, the waistline, and then this is the full length. So on the bust line, I'm going to enter half of the bust pan measurement, which is the nipple to nipple measurement, plus ½ inch, which is 4.5. That's half of the nipple to nipple measurement plus ½ inch. So whatever you have on the bust line, I'm going to be subtracting 1.5 inches from it, and I'll enter it on the bust line. So you can subtract 1 inch from it if you are making this for a slim person. This is a plus size person, so the bigger the bust, the more the dart intake. So that's why I subtracted 1.5 inches from it, and I entered 3 inches on the bust line. Now I'm going to be marking the same 3 inches on the waistline, just like you can see. And then on the full length, whatever I have on the bust line, which is 4.5. I'm going to enter it at that point too, at the full length. So having done that, now next I'm going to get the over bust line. So the distance from the bust point to the under bust point also determines the over bust line, so which is 4 inches. So now I have the over bust line also. So on this over bust line, whatever I have on the bust line, I'll take away half inch from it and enter it on the over bust line. So here I have 4.5, so I'll mark 4 inches on the over bust line. And then I'll also mark the same 4 inches on the starting line here. So I'll go ahead and use a straight ruler to connect the parts that are the same so that I have it straight, and then I'll connect it to the hem. So now we want to create our cup. I'll bring in my armhole curve. So you can see this is me marking from the under bust to the bust point, and then this is from the bust point to the over bust. So here we are. So now our front piece or our center front piece is ready. So I'll bring in my scissors and cut it out. So we have our center front piece now, and this is what it looks like. So next I'll go ahead and fold over my fabric so that we can draft the side pieces also. So you want to be sure that whatever fabric you're folding is going to be enough to accommodate the biggest measurement. If the bust is the biggest, you use the bust to determine the amount of fabric to fold. If the hip is the biggest, please use the hip to determine the amount of fabric to fold, because this blouse is going to stop on the hip line. So you want to make sure to consider all this when folding your fabric. So we already have our center front piece. So as usual, we divide our circumferences by 4. So now that we already have our center front piece, all our measurements, when we divide by 4, we're going to be subtracting what we have at the center front piece from this measurement. I hope this is clear. Okay, so this is me just confirming if my fabric is enough to accommodate the hip measurement, since the blouse will get to the hip line, and this is enough. So now go ahead and then press it and show us the next thing to do. Now I've gone ahead to draw my starting line. So here is our center front piece. This was how I cut it out. So to place it on the side piece, did you notice how I flipped it over? So I flipped it over and you can no longer see my marking. So you want to make sure that you flip it over the correct way. This is because you want to replicate the dart that you had at the center front piece. So you can see that where I just pointed at, and that's where I'll be cutting out my dart. So next I'm going ahead to enter all the vertical measurements also. So the bust, the under bust, the waist, and then the full length. Having done this, now we're going to enter our horizontal measurements, and we already have our center front piece, so which already has some part of the measurement. So for the bust divided by 4 gave me 10 and 3/4. So this 10 and 3/4, I'll subtract what I have on the bust pan, that's the center piece, which is 4 inches. Remember we had 4.5, so that's minus the half inch. Half inch is for the sewing allowance for the center front. So when you subtract it, I'll be left with 6 and 3/4. So you can see that that's what I entered at this point. You want to make sure that you enter the difference and then go ahead and enter your sewing allowance. And in this case, I'm entering 2.5 inches. So half inch will be for joining the side to the center, and then I'll have my regular 2 inches sewing allowance. On the underbust line, the underbust measurement divided by 4 is 9.5. I'll be subtracting 2.5 from that 9.5, and that will leave me with 7. because on the underbust line I have 3 inches. Half inches for joining the center to the side, so that's why I'm subtracting 2.5 inches. So my measurement will be starting from minus 2.5 inches, or I'll go ahead and mark the 7 inches, which is what I desire to have there. And you can see that I marked my 7 inches, placing my tape from the center front. So and then I'll go ahead and enter same 2.5 inches, which is going to be half inch for joining the center piece, and then that's the side piece, and then my 2 inches sewing allowance. So on the waistline I repeated the same thing. So here on the hip line I also subtracted the center piece from it, and I entered my 2.5 inches. On the hip line I also added 1.5, so I didn't just add 2.5 to the hip line, that's to the full length. I added plus 1.5. This is to give it an A shape look. So take note, down the hip line I added my 2.5 inches, and then I also added 1.5. This is so that I have that A shape at the hem of the blouse. Having connected my points, next we're going to enter the armhole line. So starting from -4, I'm going to mark the armhole line, which is also known as the chest line. So from -4, I'm going to mark on 8.6, and I came about this 8.6 by dividing the bust measurement plus 1.5. That will give you your armhole line. So here is my 8.6 mark. Okay. So next we're going to enter the off shoulder measurement. So on the starting line here, that's where I'll be entering the off shoulder measurement. So to get that measurement, you use the actual shoulder measurement minus, now my client's shoulder measurement is 18 inches. 18 divided by 2, that's 9. So 9 minus 2 inches is what I'll be entering on that starting line, which is going to now be, yes, the starting line. So remember that our front piece, our center front piece, we already have 4 inches at the upper part there. So 4 minus half, which is for joining, so I'm left with 3.5. So meaning that the center front I already have 3.5. So now on the side piece I'm looking for the remaining 3.5 to give me my 7 inches. So take note of the way I'm placing my tape. I placed it from -3.5 to mark on the remaining 3.5, which is going to be 7 inches. And then I'll go ahead and add half inch for joining the side, and also half inch for joining the sleeve. So I'm going ahead to cut out my dart so that we can have the exact same shape as the center front. So I just cut out exactly what I have there. So my dart is off. So now for the shoulder measurement, that's the off shoulder measurement, I'm making sure to enter my 7 inches at the starting line. And then I'm also going to add 1 inch. So half inch will be for joining the side front to the center front, and then half inch will be for joining the sleeve. That's the other half inch will be for joining the sleeve at the armhole area. So having done that, I'm going to go ahead and connect from the starting point to the chest line. So just like this, I'll go ahead and connect it and show us the next thing to do. So I'm using my armhole curve to connect from the starting point to the chest line. You don't want to deepen this part of the armhole. You don't want it to be deep. So you just want to make it as light as possible. So and then I'll go ahead and connect from the bust line to the armhole line. So I just came out by half of an inch there just to open up the chest line a little. So now this is me going ahead to cut. I'm cutting out from the starting line and then the armhole, and then of course I'll go ahead and cut the sides too. So now we have our front pieces. This is our center piece. Can you see how the dots are alike? So I just traced out exactly what I have at the center front on the side. So this is me opening up my fabric. Can you see? This is what our centerpiece looks like, and then the sides, this is what it looks like. So I'm going to set this aside and bring in my lining to draft the back piece. So I've placed on fold the fabric for my back piece and I've gone ahead to iron it. So here I'm marking my starting line. So the width of the fabric I have here is 15 inches, which is enough to give me the hip measurement divided by 4 plus 2 inches for my sewing allowance plus 1.5 inches. So you want to make sure that your fabric is wide enough to give you the biggest measurement, because that determines the amount of fabric to fold. So here is my center back, and this side that is open is the side back. So all my measurements will start from the center back. So I'm going ahead to mark my zip allowance, which is 1.5 inches. So here is the zip allowance. So I'll bring in my straight ruler and connect the points. So all my measurements will start after the zip allowance. So this line now is now the center back line. So on the starting line, placing my tape from the center back, I'm going to mark 7.5 inches, which is the shoulder measurement, half of the shoulder measurement minus 2 plus half inch. So from -4 now, placing my tape from -4, I'm going to mark the chest line, which is 8.6 inches. So here is our chest line. Next, I'm going to go ahead and mark the waistline and then the full length of the blouse, making sure that my tape is still on the starting line, which is -4. That's my tape is starting from -4. So now I have our vertical measurement. So I'm just going to straighten my lines out. Okay, so having done this, this is our chest, our waist, and then the full length of the blouse. On this chest line, I'm going to enter quarter of the bust measurement plus 2 inches. So take note that my tape is starting placed on the center back, that's after the zip allowance. So now I'm marking my sewing allowance. On the waistline here, I'm going to enter quarter of the waist measurement plus 2 inches, then plus 1 inch for that. So I'm going to be adding 1 inch for that. And then on the hip line, which is the hem line, I'm going to, that's on the full length, I'm going to enter quarter of the hip measurement plus 2 inches, then plus 1.5, just like I opened up at the front piece to give it that A shape. Okay, so here we are. So I'm going to use my straight ruler to connect my points. So having connected my points, I'm going to be connecting from the starting line to the armhole line. That's from our off shoulder line to the armhole line. So I'm going to place my curve. You don't want this to be deep at all. So this is an off shoulder, so you need to make the curve a little light, not deep, okay? So you can see this is what we have. So next I'm going to come to the center back here where I have my zip allowance to eliminate zipper bulge. So on the waistline, I'm going to be marking ½ inch on the zip allowance point. So I'm marking ½ inch. This is on the waistline. So I'm going to use my ruler to slant it all the way to the starting point. And then I'm going to slant it to 2 inches above the hip line. So you can see, so I'm just going to mark 2 inches above the hem line. So I'm just going to use my straight ruler to connect it to that point. So now you can see that we have taken out our zipper bulge. So we're going to be cutting out this part and throwing away so that our back can sit very well. So from the center back line now, take note of the way I'm placing my tape, which is away from the zip allowance. I'm going to mark the nipple to nipple point. That's half of the nipple to nipple, which is 4 inches. So I've marked the same 4 inches on the chest line, on the hemline, and of course the waistline. So I'm using my straight ruler to connect this point. So now on the waistline, I'm going to mark ½ inch on both sides of the nipple to nipple line I have there. So remember I added just 1 inch for my dart, so I'm going to be marking half inch on both sides. So that will leave me with my 1 inch. And then from the chest line, I'll come down by half of an inch. Then I'll connect it to the waistline. And then also from the hip line, I'll go up by 3 inches. Here, the hip line of my client is 26 inches. The length of the blouse is 27 inches. So you're going to be stopping your dart 2 inches above the, and 3 inches above the hip line. So which is what I have marked here. Okay, so went ahead to connect my dart just like this. So now we have our back dart. Okay, so for the neckline, remember that we already started our measurement from -4. So I'll place my tape from -4 and then mark on 5.5. And then I'll curve it from the armhole to this point. So now we have our back neckline. Okay, so I'll go up by half of an inch. This is for my seam allowance I'll be using to turn the neckline. So I went up by half of an inch. So I'm just going to connect the ½ inch mark. So go ahead and now cut it out because we are done with drafting our back. As you can see, we now have our back pieces. So can you see how the back opens there? This is because of the bulge we removed, the zipper bulge at the center back. So now I'm going to set this aside and bring in my front pieces so that I can cut the neck line. So placing my front piece this way, my side pieces. So I'm going to place ½ inch over the side, ½ inch from this front center piece over the side. Let me repeat myself. Placing the side piece, I placed the front piece, that's the center piece, ½ inch over the side piece. That's that ½ inch I'll be using to stitch them together. I placed the ½ inch over the ½ inch from the side piece. Now placing my tape from -4. So here I have my -4 and I'm marking on 6.5 inches for the neck depth. So for the neck depth, I'm marking 6.5 inches. I'm going to bring in my armhole curve and curve it to the armhole just like I did for the back. I'm placing it this way. I want to achieve a sweetheart neckline. So I'll go ahead and cut the front neckline now. So you can see I'm cutting from the center piece first, and then it just goes into the side piece. So just take note that I placed ½ inch over ½ inch, which is going to be the seam allowance I'll be using to join them together. So this is what our front neckline looks like. That's the upper part, which is the off shoulder. And then this is what the side pieces looks like. So I'm going to place these on my satin fabric and be cutting my satin, which is going to be the main fabric. And then I'll also do the same thing for the back piece. I'm going to cut the satin, cut my net, which will also be for the back, but I'll be making it 2 inches longer Remember that this is my lining. I didn't add hemming allowance. So I'm going to cut this with 2 inches extra so that I can have my hemming allowance. So this is what I have done. You can see that this is my back piece and it is 2 inches longer than the lining. Okay, and I also repeated the same thing for the other pieces too. And then for the back, you can see that I have placed my net. That's the net I cut from the George material. I've pinned it to the satin. So I'm going to set the back pieces aside. And then here is my front piece. I've also padded my front piece. I padded directly on the lining. This is because I don't want to strain the main fabric. I want everything to be sitting well and relaxed. So I padded on the lining fabric. So this is my center piece and I have my side pieces too. Can you see? So to pad on your lining, it has a way of giving you that smooth smooth curve in front, so you just want to make it relaxed. Since I'm working with George fabric, so and we cannot over iron it, so it's just better to work with your lining directly. So that's that. And then I have the main fabric, which is the satin, and I made it 2 inches longer. And I've also gone ahead to iron my haystay to it to give it that stability. So now it's time for us to go and join our pieces together, and then I'll show us the next thing to do. So I've joined my bustier together, and this is what our lining looks like, the one with the pad. Can you see? And this is how it is. I've pressed it opened, and this is what we have on the wrong side. So I'm just going to push up the pad this way because this is the lining. So the pad will be pushed up this way so that it can be facing the satin fabric. This is what it will look like on the reverse side, that's on the inside. So now I'll place my satin over it like this. So you see, it will sit, the cup will sit inside this cup. So this is what it looks like. So you just stretch it out well nicely. So right now you need a mannequin. If you don't have a mannequin, just get plenty clothes and put under the cup area of the bustier so that you can now place your Indian George net on top of it to achieve your pattern. But here I already have my mannequin. And you can see I padded the stomach of my mannequin just to make her a little bigger, so that because this person I'm making this blouse for is a plus size, so I need the stomach to be a little bigger so that I can balance well. And then I also wore her a bra so that the cup can be fuller. So here now, this is my bride doll face satin, which is the main fabric. You want to make sure that the underbust point matches up with the underbust point of the mannequin. So can you see what I'm doing? So once you have placed it, my mannequin is not pinnable, even though now that she's wearing clothes, you can pin it. Okay, so I'm just going to arrange it well so that everything sits well and aligned. So now I have my Indian George net, and you can see that I marked the midpoint. So I went ahead to notch it and I marked the center because you want to place your pattern in a way that it aligns very well. So you see, I folded it into two, and then I went ahead to use my chalk to mark the center. So you want to make sure that that center matches up with the sweetheart neckline that you have there at the center of your sweetheart neckline. So can you see what I'm doing? You just want to arrange that point and then pin that point down first. That's the first point where you pin down. So I'm just going to use my safety pin to secure it. Once you do that, the pattern will now be centralized, and then you go ahead and start pinning the other sides. So now you can see that now my pattern now is now centralized and is now sitting well. So you want to just take your time, carefully arrange this, and then you go ahead and start pinning it around the mannequin. So you need to stretch out some sides, especially the underbust side, This is because when it gets to the underbust, it will be forming a small fold. So you need to just stretch it out so that you can pin it well. So I'm just going to keep pinning while we watch what I'm doing. And then I'll show us the result when we are done before we cut it out. The upper part, I had to get someone to hold this side for me so that it doesn't shift while I pin the other side. I'm pinning it at the side seam, that's at the end, the other end there. Sorry, my camera is not capturing it, but I'm pinning it at the tail end, that's at the side completely. There, that's what I'm doing. So you just want to keep stretching it out and keep pinning. So right now I'm done pinning, so I'm going to go ahead and cut out exactly the net. So I'm just going to follow the shape. I won't be cutting very close to the tip. This is because by the time I cut it out, so I'll have limited fabric to work with, so I can now stretch it out better and everything will sit well. So I'm just going to be cutting, maybe let's say I'll be leaving like half of an inch round or like 1 inch round so that I can now stretch it out properly and pin it correctly before going to stitch it. As you can see, I've cut out my excess fabric and you'll notice that the underbust area is gathering a little. So I'll need to take off my pin there and now stretch it out. That's the essence of cutting out your excess fabric so that you don't have plenty of fabric dragging it. So you just need it to stretch it out now. So can you see? So just stretched out this part and then everything will sit all nice and neat. So I'll take off my pin, stretch it out well and pin it down. So can you see that I no longer have that gathering there? So I'm just going to do this on all the sides, stretch it out very well and pin properly so that I don't have any excess gathering anywhere. Can you see? So, and which is what I have done. So can you see that the underbust part is no longer gathering? So just in case you are making a George blouse with shoulders, by the time you pin yours and you notice that it's gathering around the underbust area, all you need to do is to do a small dart at that part. But you can see that mine is not gathering at all. So I'm just going to take this down to my sewing machine, stitch my net fabric onto the net and onto the satin, sorry. I'll stitch the net and the satin together. I'll stitch them together and then I'll use my lining to turn, then place my lining right side of the lining facing the right side of the fabric. I'll turn the neckline, the sides, and bring it out from the armhole. I'll be repeating the same thing for the back piece and then I'll come back and show us what we have. You can see I've stitched the lining and the main fabric together, and this is me notching the neckline. So you want to make sure you notch the neckline so that when you turn it out, it will relax well and then you can give it a very nice press. So can you see that I'm bringing out my fabric from the armhole area? So everything is neat and beautiful. So I'm just going to give it a nice press and then show us what we have. So after pressing the bustier, this is what I have and it's sitting all nice. So of course, if the down part is open, the bust area will gather a little. Can you see? But once it's on the human body, everything will look very aligned. This is because it is on the table. Do we understand? So this is what it looks like on the reverse side. You want to make sure that when you are pressing, you press from the wrong side. You don't want to mistakenly press your net directly, especially if you use a very hot iron, so that it doesn't burn the net. So you make sure that you cover with a piece of fabric or use low steam to press it. So I've also sewn my darts for the back and I've fixed my zipper. You can see I've turned it out so the armhole is the only part that is opened. So in my next video, I'm going to be showing us how to cut and sew a 3-step balloon sleeve, because that's the sleeve I'm going to be attaching to this cloth, to this blouse. So if you would like to see that video, make sure to subscribe, put on your notification bell so that you get notified once I post the video. Please like this video, share, leave a comment. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.